Happy birthday, Austin!
Today is Austin's birthday party. But anyways, hi everybody!
Happy Sunday!
Bye! Oh, this is my air hug.
Here's a Charlie Brown character.
Who's your favorite Charlie Brown character?
Charlie.
Charlie Brown.
Mine's Sally.
Bye! My favorite is Charlie too.
Okay, go.
Mommy, who's the other mean guy? That mean guy. That mean guy.
I forgot his name.
Pax, that's his name.
Okay.
My favorite is Pax because he has an angry face.
He has an angry face. Okay, tell him bye.
Because somebody takes, because who's that?
Lucy.
Lucy takes this. No, that's not Lucy. That's Molly.
Molly.
No, that's Lucy.
Okay.
Lucy.
Tell him bye.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him see you later.
Who just says the He-Man or Stormtrooper?
What's your favorite, He-Man or Stormtrooper?
He-Man, cause he rides on his horsey.
Oh, He-Man's Razzle. Okay, go on.
Who's this like the guy? To He-Man.
Neither one. I don't know any He-Man people. All right, tell him bye. You'll see him next week.
Skeletor, cause Skeletor he sees He-Man.
Okay, Skeletor. Okay.
He has some blue.
Blue.
All the one has some blood
Oh, okay.
on his tongue.
Okay. All right. As Elizabeth told you, it's been birthday weekend here. Austin's birthday was Thursday, and he got to take a field trip with the school group on Friday, and then we went and had a birthday party this weekend. So we are still in the birthday mode over here. So I hope everyone's had a good weekend. Hope you're staying warm. Hopefully it'll get warmer. I haven't looked at the forecast. I don't know what it's supposed to do this week, but maybe get a little bit warmer. So far in this series, we've talked about the prophets. Then we talked about Judas Iscariot last week. This week, we are going to talk about the Jewish rulers. And there's just too much in this chapter to do in 1 week. So I am going to split it up into 2 weeks. This week, we're going to talk about who the Jewish leaders were, the groups of them, what they're responsible for, what they did. Next week, we will talk about what made the Jewish people who they were, with their attitudes, with how they did things, their mannerisms, and all that. But this week, we're going to focus on the actual group of Jewish leaders. And there's several of them that make up the group. I'm going to start by reading, like I usually do, the viewpoint, I guess, each week of each of these different groups. And this week it says, Pilate knew why the Jewish rulers had delivered Jesus into his hands. This wasn't justice. Jesus was no threat to Caesar. It was because of envy that they had requested crucifixion. The Jews were so obsessed with others that they could not see themselves. Every mirror was clouded by insecurity. They craved the public's adoration the way a stomach craves food. And if anyone dared to challenge them, they would stop at nothing to protect their beloved reputation, hoarding up praise like a miser collecting gold. It was envy that turned the hearts of the Jewish rulers to soil, nourishment for the roots of their necks, which were rigid as the cedars of Lebanon. So that really doesn't paint a good picture of these Jewish leaders, right? Envy, prideful, boastful, all about me, 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 me. Don't take the spotlight off of me. And as we know, Jesus did take the spotlight off of them. He showed them up, if you will, several things. He could do the same things they did, do it better. So that is where we stand this week. And they played, the Jewish leaders played the role of beginning the crucifixion. Getting Jesus to where he was going to be killed. This is the group that got him, I don't want to say found him guilty, that got people to believe he was guilty when he wasn't. They're the ones who got him killed. They started the process. So to start this, we're going to talk about the ranks of Jewish leaders. And in 2 Chronicles 19:11, it says, "And behold, Amariah, the chief priest, is over you in all matters of the Lord." So this verse tells us, in this verse it's Amariah, but if you are a chief priest, you're what? You are over all matters of the Lord. You're the top guy, okay? You're the spiritual head over God's people. You're pretty important. So the high priest during Jesus' day, during this time, was Caiaphas. So we know from 2 Chronicles 19:11 that Caiaphas had all the power during this time. It was up to him. He determined right and wrong. He was the top of the top. Underneath him, you had the chief priest and you had your elders. So you had the high priest, then you had the chief priests and elders, then you had the scribes. And the scribes were very important. They were very educated. They were considered educated. They were your lawyers. And the reason people considered them experts in the law is because that's what they did all day. They sat down and they copied the law day in and day out. So when you copy something over and over and over, how do we learn? I'm starting to do it with Elizabeth. Every week in school, she's got to write. How did you learn your spelling words? You got sent home a list on Monday, and every single day you wrote those words, whether they were in a sentence, whether it was writing them 3 times each, whether it was spelling them on Friday in a spelling test. You had all week using these words, spelling these words. You memorized those words by Friday. That's what they described the scribes as, expected of the scribes. They were writing this law day in and day out. They should know it by the back of their hand. Just like anything, when they were copying back then, if they made a mistake, they'd have to throw the whole thing away and start over. And so they were very, very, very precise, very particular. They took their time, so they knew this law frontwards and backwards. So you had the chief priest, or the high priest, then you had the chief priest, the elders, and then the scribes. Underneath the scribes, you had the Pharisees. And then underneath the Pharisees, you had the Sadducees. And we know the Sadducees didn't believe in Jesus. And we can go back to when we were a kid. How do you tell the difference between the Sadducee and the Pharisee? I've always been told the Sadducees were sad, you see. So that's always stuck with me. You can forget, or I can forget the meaning of Pharisees, but I always know the Sadducees were sad, you see, because they didn't believe in Jesus. And that's how we're teaching our 2 kids to remember it. It just kind of sticks with you. So underneath the Pharisees and Sadducees, they're the bottom level, okay? So we have the high priest, the chief priest and elders beneath him, the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Sadducees. All of these groups, there's what, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under these 6 groups, you had the Sanhedrin. All of these made up the Sanhedrin. So the Sanhedrin had a lot of power. You see in these, they had people that were ranked very powerful. But there was one thing, out of all the power this group had, there's one thing that they did not have the power to do. And that was the power to carry out capital punishment. So they could not have Jesus killed. As bad as they wanted it, they could not. They did not have that power. So they had to send him to trial, which is where we started off this chapter. They sent him to Pilate. They had to send him to trial. So leading up to this trial, there's 5 things that led to the plotting of Jesus going to trial. Led to the plotting of getting Jesus killed. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And it all starts, you got to remember, all these groups, they're Jews, okay? They have their traditions. They have their lawful traditions. They have the law, and then they have the traditions of the law that they believe in. We have traditions today. Traditions can be good. Traditions can be bad. The ones we're talking about today, all 5 of these accusations are going to center around the traditions during Jewish times, during when these Jews lived, the traditions that they held fast and true, and that if you broke them or if you didn't do this tradition, you were wrong. Okay? So a tradition is a long established or inherited way of thinking or acting. And like I just said, we all have traditions. We do. We have traditions in, especially at holidays. But I got to think about this when I was doing the devotional. Some people, and I've known them, on Monday you wear tennis shoes. On Tuesday you wear high heels. On Wednesday you wear flats. On Thursday you wear something else. On Friday you wear flip-flops. I mean, depending on the weather, the time, blue jeans every Friday. Every Friday they'd wear the same pair of blue jeans. Monday you wore red. I went to school with somebody who on Monday you wore one color, on Tuesday you wore, and every single week. So every Monday you would know that this person was going to wear red. That's just something. There's traditions like that. There's traditions in the workplace. I call some of them habits. It's kind of a stretch, but what about if we get up every morning and we go and we're at the gas station, the coffee shop, wherever, and we get our cup of coffee before we go to work, or we go to Hardee's and get us a biscuit. It's not really a tradition, it's a habit, but that's their mindset. They have a ritual. Some are good traditions and some are bad, and we have to watch out for the bad ones and that we don't get caught up in them and they take us away from the Lord. And they made a very good point in this book. And it's like, okay, well, what's a bad tradition? I mean, honestly, what could be a bad tradition? Well, they put it in the church standpoint. And I never thought about a tradition in this sense. But you want to try something new. Whether it's teaching a different curriculum, whether it's changing up the speakers for Ladies' Day, having a ladies' night. I mean, the list could go on and on. So whatever you want to put in this blank, you can put in it. So I come up and I say, hey, I would like to try game night. Well, Paula, we did that in years past and it just didn't work. Nobody showed up. Nobody liked games. We just don't think that's a good thing to do. So the way it has to stay, because we tried it 10 years ago and it didn't go over. That is where this book is going with a bad tradition. And that is a very simple example. It's a silly example, but you all know where I'm going with that. We've all heard it, and we've maybe even been the ones that said it. Is, oh, well, we did that 10 years ago, or we did that 5 years ago, or we did that 50 years ago, and it didn't go over, so we're not going to try that again. We're not going to do it. Okay, so we have to be careful with that way of thinking. And we have to be open to change and open to new things. So this is where their mindset is. The Jews' mindset is, this is the way it's always been. This is the way it's always going to be. So we're going to look at our 5 accusations, the 5 things that got the Jews, or got the ball rolling so the Jews could kill Jesus. And I'm already at 15 minutes and I didn't realize that. So we are going to probably speed up the pace of this. We're going to be at Mark chapter 2 through Mark 3 verse 6. And we're going to see the 5 things the Sanhedrin accused Jesus of. Some of them were traditions that the Jews had. And so they were mad at Jesus for not following their traditions. So we're going to read, we're going to start with chapter 2. Verses 1 through 12. And like I said, I'm going to read this pretty quickly so we can get through it. And when he returned to Capernaum after some days, it was reported that he was at home. And many were gathered together, so that there was no more room, not even at the door. And he was preaching the word to them. And they came, bringing to him a paralytic carried by 4 men. And when they could not get near him because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him. And when they made an opening, they let down the bed on which the paralytic lay. And when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, Son, your sins are forgiven. Now some of the scribes were sitting there, questioning in their hearts, Why does this man speak like that? He is blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? And immediately Jesus, perceiving in his spirit that they thus questioned within themselves, said to them, Why do you question these things in your heart? Which is easier, to say to the paralytic, Your sins are forgiven, or to say, Rise, take up your bed and walk? But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins. He said to the paralytic, I say to you, rise, pick up your bed, and go home. And he rose and immediately picked up his bed and went out before them all. And so they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw anything like this. So this is our first accusation. They accused him of blasphemy because he didn't touch the man. He just looked at him and said, rise, take your mat, and go home. Get up and walk. The Sanhedrin tradition, you can't heal that way. You're supposed to go touch them. You're supposed to heal them. You're supposed to take the bad things out. It's supposed to be this big old miracle, which it is a miracle, and it's supposed to be a big old to-do, but all Jesus did, he spoke the words. Take your mat, get up, walk, go home. And the man did. He was healed, and the Sanhedrin was against that. They said that was wrong. The second instance is verses 13 to 17. It says, he went out again beside the sea, and all the crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax booth. And he said to him, follow me. And he rose and followed him. And as he reclined at the table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners were reclining with Jesus and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And the scribes of the Pharisees, when they saw that he was eating with sinners and tax collectors, said to his disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? And when Jesus heard it, he said to them, those who are well have no need of physician, but those who are sick. I cannot come to call the righteous, but sinners. So our second instance tells us that Jesus ate with sinners. And that's a no-no. That is a no-no. If you were a Jew, you did not do this. You had no dealings with sinners, and yet here Jesus is eating with them, sitting with them, talking to them. So if you will, a tradition was to eat with your own kind and deal with your own kind. And here, Jesus broke that, didn't he? He broke that tradition. He did all that was wrong. He went inside with them. He ate with them. He talked to them. He did everything. I think it is a good example for us today, when we look at this story, that it tells us we should include everyone and treat everyone like we want to be treated. We shouldn't say, oh, well, they are a different class than us, or they don't dress as neatly as we do, or they don't shop at the same grocery store as we do, so we can't go eat their food, or they don't have as nice of things as we do, so they're not as good as us, so we don't have nothing to do with them. It happens today. It happens, and we shouldn't be that way. The third instance is verses 18 through 22. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, and people came and said to him, why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? And Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, the patch tears away from it, the new from the old, and a worse tear is made. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is destroyed, and so are the skins. But new wine is for fresh wineskins. So these verses tell us, the Sanhedrin's trying to get on to Jesus for fasting. And we know back in those days, and even some today, I have a acquaintance, I guess, not really a friend, someone I know, that fast. She does the food fasting. She will go, I don't know how many days and not eat, and then she'll eat one day, and then she'll go days and not eat. It's one thing she does. But back then, one of the ways they fasted was in prayer as well. So the Sanhedrin is asking why Jesus' people aren't fasting when everyone else is. And Jesus told them, why fast while I'm here? They're going to need to fast while I'm away. And they obviously didn't understand that at that time. It makes sense to us because we have read the whole story. We know what comes next. But he says there's no need for it. I'm here right now. They don't need to fast. The fourth instance is 23 through 28. One Sabbath he was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck the heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? And he said to them, have you never read what David did when he was in need and was hungry, he and those who were with him? How he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar, the high priest, and he ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any, but the priest to eat. And he also gave it to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even on the Sabbath. So we know how the Pharisees are mad by this point. They're mad. They're mad because they saw Jesus' disciples picking grain on the Sabbath. The Sabbath was supposed to be a day of rest. You did not work. You didn't cook. You didn't clean. You didn't work. You didn't gather food. You didn't get wood for the fire or whatever you had back then. You didn't do it. You sat there. You sat there and did nothing. So Jesus was breaking a huge tradition. And the Pharisees didn't like that. And what did Jesus say? If you're hungry and it's the Sabbath, you need to eat, right? Look what David did. He not only ate, he fed the people with him. And they didn't get that. That made them mad. Again, that was a tradition. You don't do anything on the Sabbath. Why was Jesus doing this? The last one we're going to talk about is chapter 3, 1 through 5. Again, he entered the synagogue, and a man was there with a withered hand. And they watched Jesus to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man with the withered hand, "Come here." And he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to kill?" But they were silent. And he looked around at them with anger, grieved at their hardness of heart, and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. Again, what did Jesus do? He did the same thing they did in the first one. He didn't touch the man. He healed the man without laying hands on him. And he did what the fourth one was, is it was on the Sabbath. He healed somebody on the Sabbath, and you weren't supposed to do that. Their tradition said you don't do that. After these 5 instances we just looked at, the Pharisees started thinking, okay, we got to get rid of him. He is taking our power away. He is better than us. People are following him. They're not paying attention to us. We've got to get rid of him. And they went back and they started plotting. They started getting a plan together on how they were going to kill Jesus. And we will see next week more of how that plot takes place. And we will finish talking about the Jewish leaders next week. And we're going to talk about how they had ignorance, how they were prideful, how they had resentment, and how they were envious of Jesus. So just be thinking about that this week. I know it's probably a bad stopping point, but this would be an hour-long devotional if I went on. And I've already made this one longer than what I usually do. So I hope everyone has a great week. We will finish the Jewish leaders next week and see what led them to be to plot to have Jesus killed. So I hope everyone has a great week. Stay warm, stay healthy, and if you all need anything, just ask. And we will see you all here next week. Thank you for listening.